Our T-level program in particular, I'll speak about that first, has been really successful. So we deliver a T-level in engineering, particularly the design and manufacturing pathway. And we have been really successful with not only recruiting students, but also our employer partners to that. And I think there's kind of a couple of really critical things in which we've made that super successful. Obviously, we've had a very successful employer engagement program at UTC South Durham for a long, long time. It's been established now for many years, and that was really about making sure we've got very open and transparent relationships with our industry partners, making sure we've got great connections with them. I speak a lot about I ensure that they are a part of our team here at the UTC, and they most certainly feel like they're a part of the team as well. So I manage them as if they were one of my team, and there's lots of them. So we work with over 150 partners. But I think that kind of two-way open door, really happy to give and receive feedback from one another culture that we have with our industry partners has absolutely created a really successful platform for us to deliver T-level placements from. So in terms of how do we do that, and what has been the success, and then I will talk a little bit about I think what would be even better if, most certainly from a governmental and policy perspective, would be really important to be able to feed that back. So the success that we've had with our students, obviously destinations are incredibly important to us at the UTC, as they are with many institutions across the country, but particularly us as a network. So our success with destinations really speaks for itself. So our students are very bespokely tailored, I guess, in terms of what their careers are. And it was pleasing to hear some of the changes that have been made around the careers statutory guidance. I was one of the team who worked nationally on the Gatsby benchmarks and refreshing those. So I've had a voice in that, which was great to be able to be part of, but then to see and hear some of the kind of iterations to that has been really good. I do think we've got a bit of a challenge with that, however. The aspiration to have 2 weeks of work experience, and this is just broadly speaking rather than with T-level, is going to be a challenge. And it links in with some of the it would be even better if commentary that I'll give around T-levels. So I think there is some challenges for us moving forward, but not insurmountable by any stretch, particularly if you get the culture right of the institution that you're working in, I think. So destination super successful. A lovely example from a T-level program has been apprenticeships. Obviously, a lot of our young people come to do T-levels at the UTC, particularly in South Durham, because of the apprenticeship success that we have. And again, that's a linkage with our employer partners. So with apprenticeships, we've got a company called A-Tech Fabrication. We are located on a business park, for those who don't know, which is a really odd location for a school and a sixth form, but perfectly placed for our culture and ethos and values as a UTC. And this is one of our very local companies. And we're now on our third generation of T-level students who have been with the company, and they're using it. They're an SME, and they're using that and the T-level placement model as a talent pipeline for their apprenticeship program. And this we've had a T-level placement success. He recruited 2 apprenticeships from the T-level students, and then they mentored the next T-level placement students, and now we're on the third generation, and all of them are doing a level 4 apprenticeship pathway, which was brilliant success and progression for the students, and is having really kind of significant impact. So super successful in terms of destinations, but that's an apprenticeship. But our young people go off to do full-time jobs from a T-level pathway, and obviously they go off to university. I guess again though, some of my it would be even better if, particularly around T-level placements and T-levels as a qualification, is that not all universities obviously see them as valid in terms of entry, which is pretty frustrating actually, because you're getting some exceptional young people from the T-level program, and I can only speak for us here, but there are some exceptional young people on this program, and universities, I feel, are really missing out on that diversity in terms of their academic success, but also their knowledge of industry and how they can apply that knowledge really successfully. So I think there's a bit of work to do there in terms of policy and that broader thinking from a university perspective, particularly with the Oxbridge. And we're very fortunate in the Northeast. We have 2 Russell Group universities, one of whom is really trying to wrap their heads around the T-level pathway, and whether, for example, the engineering one that we deliver is going to give them the level of A-level maths content that an engineering degree would need. Well, my team here would argue that it absolutely does, actually, and the rigour that is around that T-level mathematics and physics that's in the engineering T-level is significant. So we're working really closely with those institutions on a very local level, at least, to really enable them to understand the impact that they could have as an institution on our local young people of the region if they just kind of reconsidered T-level as an entry into them as a university. So that's something I would really encourage some thought around. We were encouraged to hear that the Employment Support Fund was coming back to us. That was great. However, we've just been given our unfortunate but very welcome little bit of funding. So as I've said before, we have 40 plus students and 35 plus employer partners, and we've been given £2,400. It's not a huge amount of money, to be honest, particularly when we're talking that this is targeted at SMEs, which we really encourage. But that doesn't even buy kind of 3 or 4 laptops for students who need a particular design package to be able to go into the workplace. So that feels a bit limiting. Obviously, we're welcome of the money, but I don't think it's going to make a huge impact, unfortunately, particularly with some of our mobility issues with our students. So when we had the employer fund before, we were able to use some of that money to buy bus passes for students, because obviously that mobility piece is a huge problem for us, because we're very rural in County Durham. Our public transport isn't the greatest. A lot of our partners are on industry parks. Some of them are in very rural locations, but students, because of their age, are really limited to get to. So it would be, again, a bit of a thought piece, I guess, to think about how we can support our young people to get to these placements effectively. And I know that's always been a bit of a running issue. I do wonder whether there is an opportunity, however, to think really creatively about this. I was speaking to my placement officer, Lynn, before about this kind of conflict in terms of apprenticeship, and it feels like versus a T-level. I don't think they need to be in opposition to one another. I think they can work quite symbiotically together if we're a little bit creative. And again, if we could use some of the T-level thinking of how we deliver placements, but lend or dip into the apprenticeship levy money, for example. So employers who are not accessing their levy, well, could we say to them, but guess what, it's okay, that money that you're paying into with the levy, we know that you can't economically afford an apprentice right now, but actually you could be able to deliver a T-level placement. Why don't we use some of that money to be able to do that? So wouldn't that be a really easy win in terms of that money being used to enhance young people's progression, education, enrichment, and encourage them to think about an apprenticeship, but using some of that money that employers are just not accessing, because they don't have potentially the opportunities to recruit an apprentice right now. And unfortunately, that is quite a lot of feedback that we're getting at the minute from employers. I did a round table last week with 20 employer partners, and there's the absolute want to take apprentices, but there's a real downturn at the moment and they're not recruiting. So okay, we're not in a position to do that, so why not use some of that money for a T-level placement then? Wouldn't that be great? So I think there's kind of a bit of a missed opportunity there in terms of being able to think about how we're sequencing the T-level into an apprenticeship standard, actually, and does it marry really effectively? And can we go from that level 3 to a level 4 pathway? I think we can, but is the support there for an employer to think in that capacity? Because they don't know education and we don't know what a business need is, but to be able to get some additional support, I think, around how that could sequence, I think would be really, really welcome as well.
So I think in terms of like the policy makers and stakeholders, in terms of UTCs, and if you think about why we're here is we're all here to meet the regional skills demand of where our specific UTC sits. And that differs from different regions depending on the geography, depending on the types of companies that are invested within that geographical area. And I think it's really important, certainly touching on the work experience side as well, is it's building a really good relationship with your local employer base, because they're the ones who know what skills in the next 5 to 10 years that they will be looking for. And it's about making sure that you can align your curriculum and the qualifications within your curriculum, whether they be T levels or BTECs or technicals or the new AQs, to be able to make sure that the young people that are leaving the UTC meet those skills demand. And that's kind of our UTC. We really look at, number one, who are the employers within our region that are actively recruiting, the growth areas? What does our local enterprise partnership say about where the Humber region will be in the next 10 years in terms of businesses and investment? We look at the skills and knowledge that are attached to those industries. And again, it's not about pigeonholing young people into one area. The reason why we are teaching technicals is the breadth, so we can allow a young person to experience multiple different areas within a sector, whether it be engineering or digital or creative. And within that, they learn the skills and knowledge that are relevant to sector-specific industries who are our employer partners. So when our students work on an employer-led project, that employer-led project isn't actually making something for the employer. It's realising that the skills and knowledge that they're learning in a classroom relates directly to a career within that sector, within that employer. And it's really about that breadth that enables our young people to be so successful when they leave Ron Dearing, whether that be going on to university or going into an employment or degree apprenticeships, is because they already have kind of like a try before you buy scheme. And I think that's the important part. It's about allowing young people, especially 16 to 18, to understand what the layout, what the sector is that they're interested in. You know, they've made a real commitment to come to a UTC. Now it's about harnessing that commitment and allowing them to explore and try a range of different things which fit in your economical regional development. And that's, you know, has been one of the areas that we've been really successful here at Ron Dearing, is because we've been able to align our employers and our students and our curriculum all together to ensure that when a young person goes for a job interview at one of our employers, or at any employer, you know, even, we can talk about national and global as well, is that they have a really good understanding about what that sector needs. And more importantly, they can relate it back to where they've done it at school on an employer-led project. I think in terms of T levels and the design of T levels and moving more into work experience, is it's really important that we ensure that the work experience is meaningful and that students can get a breadth of different work experience. We have a slightly different model at our UTC where we mimic the application process for apprenticeships, everything down from CV, cover letter, all the way to final interview for work experience, because spending a week somewhere doing you know, and again, young people aren't allowed to do a lot of things with some of the companies that we work with. They're not going to get a full hands-on experience, no matter what kind of sector they're looking at. And I mean, myself, I'm pretty sure I made sandwiches for our local council, which I had no interest in whatsoever in our work experience. But our focus isn't only about them learning about that sector, but it's also about building those softer skills. And that's something that comes back from our employers time and time again, is that qualification and grades are extremely important at the stage of selection of CV and quality of CV. But when that young person is sat in front of you, being able to communicate, being able to effectively tell them why they want to work within your sector, and to actually have an understanding about your sector is as important. And being able to do that through our work experience, and again, moving into T levels and that kind of industry link that you get through those qualifications, it's about building that resilience. It's about building that confidence in young people so that no matter what the job is in any sector, that skill is going to last them a lifetime and hopefully, you know, progress them through their journey. The amount of failed apprenticeships because you know somebody who works there and they thought it would be a good idea is phenomenal. And if you actually look at the apprenticeship success rates over the last 10, 15 years, they're dismal, and it's because young people don't have a sound understanding about the industries that they're getting involved in. And that's where UTCs play a vital part for the UK, is because what we allow them to have is that breadth. We allow them to try those sectors. If they absolutely despise computer-aided design, that's brilliant. Don't be a draftsperson. Make that decision here, not 6 months into an apprenticeship with a company. And I'm really passionate about the fact that, even at 16, does a young person really know enough about the world of work to know that that's what they want to do, or that's the sector that they want to get into? And I really do believe that that's where UTCs are different to any other educational establishment, is the fact that we allow them to try, we allow them to experience. And, that's why when you look at the success rates across the board for UTCs of young people going into industry, that the success on their apprenticeships and how long they stay in those apprenticeships is far above the national average. When you leave Ron Dearing, you are not an engineer. What you are is a young person with a really good understanding about what that sector involves and where you fit in it as a person. And I think that's the key part, is it's about allowing these young people to make that right decision. And, that employer engagement strategy, we're very fortunate. We have over 60 employers now that actively look to us for recruitment, because they've sat with the students, they've worked with the students, they've seen the students, they've mock interviewed the students, and it's that impact and that connection that really matters. And even with companies that we don't work with at the moment, they will often come back to us with feedback saying, wow, we can't believe how far ahead your students are compared to everyone else. And that's because everybody else that they would have interviewed haven't come from a UTC, and it's really about that personal development and that personal growth within a young person, and the knowledge of when you walk into a company, knowing what skills that you have that are going to contribute to the same skills that they need. Yeah, so really they kind of threaded it throughout the entire report, talking about, our employer engagement. It feeds into everything. We've got fantastic attendance, fantastic grades, and a lot of that is because young people, and this is what I've said, they actively want to be at our school. They look forward to it. They want to be. They enjoy their time at the school, and they're interested in what they study. And that is because when they come in here, they know that there are people outside of just the teachers that are invested within their future. And it's really, when we looked at our Ofsted inspection, I've just got it here, it said it's got a carefully constructed curriculum across all subjects, and the school works closely with industry partners to ensure that the curriculum is relevant to the future employment that pupils aspire to, and that pupils routinely work on employer projects that deepen their understanding of their subjects and apply this to real scenarios from industry. And that's what it is. It's about knowing the skills and knowledge that you need and linking that to an employer, so that at the end of year 13, when a job does come up, that you've got a more informed decision to be able to make whether you'd like to go for that job or not. Again, it has to mimic the breadth of what your company does. You're never going to get a young person going on work experience and coming out and being, I'm now a qualified electrician or anything like that. But understanding how your business works and the ethos and values that your business have. And, we work with our companies really, really closely in terms of not just work experience, but also how their apprenticeship structure is within the first year. And a lot of our companies will move a student around various different departments. And the reason for that is that to get an understanding about, if you're a designer and then you've worked in design and then you go to manufacturing, well, you understand what you need to design for it to be manufactured. And you're also learning the values and the ethos of that company as you move around. A lot of our companies will do a week in the life of, so the student will be in there hands-on, and the jobs that they will go for directly linked to what they've been learning in their curriculum that year. So the students know that if they're interested in electronics, well, then they can go to this company because that's what they're going to be doing. And it's a week-long work experience. Some work experiences can be a couple of days. It's very much up to our companies and what they do. But it has to be meaningful. And I think that's the key bit. It has to show them what life would be like if they were to get that job or work within that industry for that amount of time. We don't want young people going sweeping floors and making cups of teas and things like that. We want them to come back thinking, wow, I want to go work for that company, or that's not really for me. Now I know that that's an area that I shouldn't really be focusing on, and I'll look to do something else. And it really is that try before you buy. It's, you know, the more breadth, the more experiences we can give these young people, the more informed their decision when they leave us for their destination will be.